One of the biggest and most important updates that happened this week was when Elon Musk announced he's now working on Tesla's Master Plan Part 4. He calls it epic. Today we'll review what is very likely to be his new master plan. First, we'll review all the previous master plans, pointing out which objectives are still not completed. Then we'll also review the most recent comments Elon said about humanoid bots. Not only that there will be 10 times more bots than cars, and that a $25 trillion market cap is conservative, but did you know, Elon also has now said that the bots will be offered both as rentals at first, then as buy later. I've got Jeff Lutz with us. He's an ex-CVP of Supply Chain and also an ex-Chief Quality Officer of several Fortune 100 companies. He's now CEO of his own consulting firm. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Hey, great to be with you, Herbert. These are big numbers.
So this Master Plan Part 4, did you think that it was coming too early? He basically, sent this out this weekend. Working on the Tesla Master Plan Part 4, it will be epic. Is this a little bit early?
Well, he said he's working on it. He didn't say when he's delivering it, to my knowledge. And no, it depends on these are plans, so it depends on the planning horizon. And it looks like humanoids and things of that nature related to it. You're talking about a very long time horizon. So I don't think it's early. And I think it's okay that some of the plans overlap, because some of these things, again, take longer time horizons, but they don't necessarily have to be in serial based on the needs and the objectives of the plan.
Okay, let's first take a look now at the previous master plans, and then we'll talk about what you think is part of it. But the big one, of course, is going to be human bots, I think. So because, again, he had so many comments about that this weekend. We'll go through all of that. This is the master plan Part 1. He said, we're going to create a low-volume car, which would necessarily be expensive. This was the Roadster. That was the very first things they started working on. He wrote this out in 2006, February, and this was done by 2008. Of course, and then we're going to use that money as we build the Roadster to develop a medium volume car at a lower price, the Model S. That was completed in 2012, and then we'll use that money to create an affordable high volume car. People thought this was never going to happen. And of course, the Model 3 was announced in 2017, and it went scale 2018. Provides zero emission electric power generation, solar power. Now they bought Solar City, 2016, but it seems to have kind of become less of an importance. This was Part 1. Famously, he put this together, and it's unbelievable that he got it done within 10 years, which is what these master plans are supposed to be, I guess, if we assume. Part 2, he came out and said, okay, we're going to create solar roofs with seamlessly integrated battery storage. Again, they did that big demo. They started selling it 2020, but it kind of fell off the wayside. Now, these three people are saying it's still ongoing. They're not done yet. This is Part 2, and now he's talking about Part 4. Expand the electric vehicle product line to address all major segments. So at this point, with the launch of the Cybertruck, this seems to be, I guess, depending on your definitions, we're pretty well there. Of course, now there's plans for the more affordable segment. So this will be completed very soon. But developing self-driving 10 times safer than manual via massive fleet learning, maybe you could tell me if you think that that's true, because they did announce that it was 10 times safer already. This was supervised self-driving. Enable your car to make money for you when you aren't using it, and it's still open. And then Part 3, it really was this epic story about how to take the world to go sustainable energy. They didn't say which parts would be Tesla's responsibilities, but they just mentioned all of these big giant numbers. In order to get there, you need 30 terawatts of renewable energy, 240 terawatt hours of energy storage, about 112 terawatt hours for electric transportation, the balance for stationary energy storage. In fact, a master plan Part 3 is to eliminate fossil fuels, includes the following, and then 21%. So this is quite generic in terms of like what the world needs. So now they're going to do Part 4. What's your comments about these first three?
Yeah, I mean, these master plans, they change the world. I mean, the first one is really, ushering in the new form of transportation. It'll take time, but the fleet will convert to electric. It's a better solution. And then on the second one, it's a lot of the work is done or ongoing. I would say there's still other vehicle segments that have to be filled out. The van, the more affordable segment. So there's still segments that need, but they're in process. It's happening. And this third and fourth one they're really tied together in many respects, because and even parts of the second one, because in order to have full autonomy, you're going to need to power these massive data centers, and you're going to need alternate forms of energy. You're going to need to solve energy problems related to heating and cooling today that require more energy today that could be done more efficiently. And then if you look at what we think Master Plan 4 can be around, it can be around basically the upheaval or change in the approach to labor through humanoids. And it's you look at these I think Elon makes these plans. First off, I think it's good to, if you're an innovator, if you're leading a major organization, to put these large objectives in front of people. It helps with recruiting. It helps with organization and alignment of goals and objectives. Companies come together usually on an annual basis and put together their goals and objectives, and they should be aligned to the master plans. And so this is, and most companies, some companies do 5-year plans, some do 2 to 3-year plans, and then there's micro plans inside of each year for goals. But to have a 10-year plan, I think is a good thing. I think it motivates Elon as well. Like, this is why I'm here. I'm 50. I think he's 52 or 53. I'm this old, and this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 10 years are all going to be pointed and aligned towards these objectives. I'm going to hire people. I'm going to change organizations. Everything's aligned to these, to achieving these objectives. So I like the fact that they're organized in this manner. I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful even for investors as well to understand, if you're investing on a long-term horizon, what is he thinking? What does he want to build? And if you look at, as some of the community have started to, put estimates behind these, including Elon himself, each one of these, the other thing to notice about these plans is they go from hundreds of billions in terms of market cap to $1 trillion, maybe in the second one, and then you have multiple trillions, and then you're talking about deca trillions. These plans get bigger and bigger in terms of objectives. And I know some of the critics are pointing out, well, if you look at 25 trillion, that's the GDP of half the world or these major countries. And again, I think they're thinking in current terms, and this is futurists are able to think on longer time horizons, but also understand, like, what's that execution path to get there. And if you look at and you follow what Elon does, he is all about execution. Now, I want to address the scheduling and the time frame piece of it, because he's changed over his career in terms of how he's approached these things. I think in the kind of the 2015, 2017 time frame, Model 3, some of the other objectives that they were going after, he puts extremely difficult schedules in front of his teams, and he keeps them there, and he asks them, why can't these be achieved? And he basically boils every single critical path down to the laws of physics eventually at some point. Now, you can't make schedules like that where you have multiple nodes that connect and they're all kind of relying on a perfect laws of physics plan. That usually doesn't work. but it keeps the team focused on the most aggressive path in the shortest time frame to get there. And I think he's changed a bit in terms of how he's now he's communicating externally on that. But this is a balance that leaders always have to kind of work through, is how do you keep teams motivated? How do you have an aggressive plan and schedule in front of them? And how do you challenge them to think differently and do things differently, so you're not just saying, well, it took this long before, so it must take this long, to do it here, versus trying to find a different way. So in terms of the timing of these plans, I think they're appropriate. I think the humanoid world is upon us. I think the compute power, the compute side of it is being set up. I think the AI work is just starting. Right now, we're really just focused on motion and controls, but now you're going to have this whole kind of large language model side of it as well, because these things need to be able to understand how to interact and communicate in the world. So you have a definite 10-year time horizon in front of you, and where we're going to see meaningful progress along the way. So I think the timing is appropriate, and I think it's exciting if you're an investor. I think it's exciting if you're following. This is taking the fiction out of science fiction, and this is when as we grew up, we always thought of will robots be with us in the future and doing meaningful tasks, and now you're literally seeing the fiction being taken out of science fiction. Yeah. So it's pretty exciting.
We are headed towards robotics AI. That's what very likely Master Plan Part 4 will be about. And then people go, well, how come you haven't achieved these? Well, this is real world AI in real world, execution and availability. And we're getting very close to this. And people think, why didn't that happen sooner? You need to get the compute. You need to get the miles driven. And so I just think that it's just crazy to people think that it's, why didn't you get this done already? And you're talking about Master Plan Part 3 and 4. This is obviously
Can I just
part
make a comment on that, Herbert, on Part 2? I was thinking about this. It's not clear to me that, here's what is the metric for, are you an AI company or not? And this could be an entire show, but I think one of the things I'd like the viewers to think about is the number of operations where perception occurs, a decision needs to be made, and then output controls occur. And if you look at what's happening with language models, and you look at what's happening with the billions of miles and all the controls that have to occur to achieve those billions of miles of FSD, I think it's hard to argue that Tesla is actually producing more AI output than any single thing on the planet. And I think that's an interesting, healthy debate to have, because this is actually happening in the real world. When your large language model doesn't answer your basic question, you kind of like, okay, maybe I need to rephrase it, or I need to do, or it just doesn't answer it at all. But if your car misses it misses an input and then doesn't have the proper control, like there's an intervention. And as Elon and the team have said, the distance between interventions is growing so great that's now becoming the next challenge. I think the interesting thought experiment for people to think about is the number of AI calculations or outputs or just execution tasks that are occurring from Teslas, the 6 million Teslas out on the road. I would challenge that the amount of AI compute and the amount of actual tasks being executed may be greater than any single other thing that's happening out there in the world.
Okay, let's go talk about robots now, because they're the same thing, robotics AI. So you've got Jensen Huang saying humanoid robots will become as common as cars, and there will be significant breakthroughs in robotics in the next 2 to 3 years. We'll watch his 2-minute video about that. Elon responded saying they will be 10 times more common than cars. 10 times more common than cars. Warren Redlich said there are roughly 2 billion cars on Earth, so that would be 20 billion humanoid robots. And Elon said, yes, 20 billion humanoid robots is a possibility. And then I did a post about the parts where Elon talked about the robots deployment, and he's talked about how they're already in the factories now, that having over 1,000 robots operational Tesla by next year. The next generation will have 22 degrees of freedom, and then they're integrating AI and so forth. Elon, and then Cern Basher forwarded that saying 25 trillion market cap, which is what Elon said at the time, is off by an order of magnitude. He walks everybody through the kind of his analysis, right? If the bot industry could build 1 billion bots per year, Tesla had just 10% market share. This is what Elon said: 100 million bots per year. Tesla could build them for 10,000 each, sell them for 20,000, which is very low. Then you're basically, Elon said, if you have a multiple of 25, you're going to get 25 trillion valuation. So that's what Elon said at the meeting. And then Cern says, I see many issues with this. Many of his assumptions are just too low. He goes through and explains that. I'm not going to do that today, but he basically explains all of his analysis. And if you apply PU25, you're going to get to $250 trillion. That's 10 times more than 25 Elon said. Elon actually said that that's true. He said it's conservative. And then he added this: bots would be offered both as rentals as well as to buy, but the former first. So this was very interesting, because now you're talking the 10 to 20, that's a $10,000 margin. It's probably way more than that. Let's listen into Jensen Huang.
Humanoid robotics will be as common as cars are today. You got to imagine what a car looks like 100 years ago on the street. What a strange instrument going down the street by itself without a horse in front of it. And so I think 100 years from now, it's very clear we'll have humanoid robots everywhere. It will likely be the largest volume mechanical system the world makes.
Won't be another 100 years ahead, right? Won't be that long.
The beautiful thing about vision is you start from the future and then you work your way back. It's a lot easier than starting from the present and work your way forward. Because of course, the future is easier to predict. Next week is very hard to predict. Next year is very hard to predict. But long term is incredibly easy to predict. And so I think working our way back is easy. Now the question is, if it's clear, so mundane, so commonplace in 100 years, when would it become quite commonplace now? Well, the world needs a lot more manufacturing capability. The number of manufacturers in the world is quite low. Labor force is quite short. And as a result, we're going to continue to see inflation. There are many things that a robot can make that no humans can make or safely make. And so there are things that only robots should build. And so I think it's very clear that we need to have robotics technology. The challenge, of course, is the technology itself is incredibly hard. A robot that understands the physical world, that understands the laws of physics, that when it sets this down on a table, it won't go through it, that it could set it down and leave it. It has to understand all of these common sense things that children somehow learned over the years. And so we have to teach these things to AIs.
I see.
And of course, the common sense, the ability to understand us, all of that technology is evolving very, very quickly. And I think that over the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to see quite significant breakthroughs.
All right. So it sounds like this is going to be part of Master Plan Part 4. There's no doubt about that. What's your thoughts on that, Jeff?
I found the correlation to cars strange. Building, and we can do a show on this, Herbert. Building a humanoid robot is probably closer to building a cell phone, tablet, obviously with the mechanical system behind it. And smartphones used to be far more mechanical than they are today in terms of moving parts. But I would think it's more closer to building a cell phone than a car, much closer actually. And there's about 8 to 10 billion smartphones out there in circulation. There are about 1.1 to 1.3 billion made new every year. So there's another correlation there, just to kind of think through, and that's the way I see it, that played out with smartphones is the way I see it playing out with robots. There will be multiple manufacturers, but the kernel of like what's really critical and high value in terms of the perception, the training, the software on the perception side, the software on the training side, I think, and of course the data. I think this is where the value is going to be eventually. And the companies that make the best and most premium hardware, which if you look in kind of the phone world, there's a couple that stand out, but many have caught up along the way. So I think there'll be lots of picks and shovels, but those kernels of gold around perception, training, software on both sides, and of course the data is where a lot of the value is going to come from.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Jeff, that the bot is actually more closely aligned with a mobile phone than it would be a car. But we're talking about, big, the right in the middle. So This is great. It's going to be huge. Master Plan 4 is coming soon. I love the way Elon thinks, and he's going to lay this out. But I think it's a reason he's doing Master Plan Part 4 now, too, is because it aligns really closely with his next, he's thinking 10 years down, because now he's going to have his next compensation plan. He's thinking about the next jump for Tesla to get to robotics, AI. He needs to be thinking through. And if you listen closely, and that's why we report on this, you see it happening. Thank you guys very much. Follow Jeff on X at the Jeff Lutz. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.